Hello, 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 everybody. Roz McCarthy here. How are you? E-Range, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Can you hear me? We can't hear you.
Oh, I'm on mute. Here we go. Here we go.
Yeah, there
Hey,
we
what's
go.
going on, sister? How are you?
Yes, I'm great. I'm great. Can't complain. It's Friday. Yay for
Oh man.
Friday. It's been a week. How you doing? Okay, I think you frozen. I think E is frozen. Okay. You there, E?
Yeah, is that my end?
Yeah, you a little
Yeah, it
frozen.
looked like I lost it for a second. Can you hear me
For a
now?
little second. Hey, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. Hey,
All right,
everybody.
perfect.
Welcome to Canada Talk with Roz. So happy to see you guys today. We're going to have a dynamic show, an extra special show, something that's near and dear to my heart. And I got a chance to connect with this brother. And like, he don't even know he family. He my cousin. He gonna be my go-to. he he has no idea when he comes into the Roz circle what that means. And so we're just so excited to have him. We're talking about corporate social responsibility. And E, I mean, you know how important this is, as you consult with so many different groups who are trying to figure this thing out, that are trying to get into this space. How important it is right now to have this conversation.
Yeah, it is absolutely imperative when we talk about corporate social responsibility, when we talk about, doing the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In this industry, we talk a lot about social equity on the outside, right? And licensing and so on. But, I've been on record many, many times talking about, the real way that we're going to make this industry a diverse industry, it will be because organizations across the board are looking at how they can, be more diverse internally, how they can be from a community engagement standpoint, how they can be a resource to the community. So yeah, this work is absolutely imperative. I'm excited that we're seeing more cannabis companies, try to take those first steps. Not everybody's getting it right, and there's going to be some stumbles out of the block,
We know.
but that's to be expected. And but I'm excited to see that we're progressing towards that. I think it speaks to the level of maturity that we're, moving towards in this industry.
Absolutely. So without further ado, everybody, make sure you're sharing this. Make sure you have in the comments if you have questions as you're listening. It's going to be a dynamic conversation. But without further ado, I want to bring up Mr. Kari Edwards. Kari, what's going on, brother? Hi. How are you?
Hi, happy Friday. As excited as anybody to be on your show.
Hey,
Uh,
hey, you
so I'm
heard
gonna
what
let
I said. You heard what I said. You know you my new everything. Like this, my cousin. It's just this, my friend. This my go-to. I got a
I
question.
just did a 23andMe to see if I'm partnered up with you and Eric some way, just since
Yeah,
we
so we
all
see if we
cousins now.
can. Yes, 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 yes. And first and foremost, we love your shirt is dope. So I don't know if you guys can see knowledge is power, and it's a dope. It's
We got air wellness on the side too.
oh
I'll
man.
tell y'all a story on that
Hey,
one too.
listen, you'll get some swag. You'll send some
Oh yeah,
swag.
for sure, for
That's
Okay,
what
sure.
I'm
all right.
saying.
All right. Hey,
We
so, but
love swag.
before we get into the story, I want to hear about the T-shirt and that story. I want you to weave it in. Please just take a few minutes to tell everybody about who you are, what you do with Air Wellness. Introduce yourself to the public.
Well, my name is Kari Edwards, lifelong Brooklynite. I don't even claim New York. I claim Brooklyn first. Spent 25 plus years of my career in public service. So I worked for not-for-profit, social service agencies, but really made my mark in politics. So I worked for New York State governor, assembly members, city council, you name it. I've been doing that work. The last 8 years of my career, I was the vice president of Brookdale Hospital for External Affairs, which is a hospital basically in Brownsville, East New York, if anybody knows Brooklyn. Um, High rate of social economic disparity, health issues. And I was actually the first Black vice president in the history of that hospital that has 97% Black and Brown employees in the community. And so my whole role in my life has really been about projecting social equity issues around disparities in healthcare, social justice, housing insecurities. And me coming to air was actually by accident, if I could say that. I ran for Brooklyn Borough President, didn't win, and a friend of mine who was very close to John Sendelman at Air asked me if I'd be interested in working in cannabis, and I'm like, nah, like cannabis, I'm in government, I don't do cannabis, and he was like, nah, you need to talk to my guy and see what's this is a big spot for you. Everything that you do is important to the industry. And I'm like, nah, son, I'm good. And then I get a phone call from Jen Drake, who's our COO. And we had a 20-minute conversation that turned into almost 2 hours. And basically she was just like, look, we followed your campaign. How would you like to do everything that you campaigned on in 8 states? And for a minute I sat back and I was like, wow, really? And I'm talking about everything, Roz and Eric, from my educational program, my housing program, my criminal justice things. Like, I wrote out stuff. Like, I thought I was winning that seat. And now, Eric gave me the opportunity, and John Sendelman gave me the opportunity to now put those things into purpose. And so, just listening to y'all guys before I came on, it's really about people, right? It's really about community. It's really about just building out things for folks who, even if they're not into the plant themselves, have been affected by the plant. Housing, education, all those things are affected by how the plant works out. And for me, it was like, why not? And I'll tell you, the other day I was just speaking to Pastor, in fact, yesterday, and he knows me. He's like, yo, how you doing since you lost the election? And I was just like, yo, I couldn't even have imagined such a great place to be. Like, God had a mission for me, and we're doing the work. So that's a
beautiful, man.
Me.
That's a beautiful story, brother.
Let me tell you how funny it's going to be 5 years from now when you look back and you was like, all right, I thought I really wanted that. I had no idea you were setting me up for this. Right. And that was the past, the pass through was going through that to get to this. And you have the ability to affect so many people. So when we talk about, the title of this show is What's in a Name, Corporate Social Responsibility in Cannabis. Going back to the war on drugs, just talk about your community and the war on drugs, being a Brooklynite, and the fact that this industry, now that it's legal, how really communities were torn apart, because that's the foundation from a social responsibility. When it comes to that's the foundational part that people have to be reminded of, that we have to make this a commitment for the whole entire industry and not just for a few people.
Yeah, and what's really dope about, I heard what y'all saying about, some companies are trying this and trying to see if they're good. My meeting with John Sendelman was real, right? Like, he's a billionaire, right? White dude who understands his privilege, but he listened, right? And what he said to me, he's like, look, bringing you into this organization, I don't want at the end of my days or your days to be the best cannabis company doing social corporate responsibility. I want to be the best company doing it. I want to be Target. I want to be, Starbucks. I want to put people's lives in a better place. And so seeing what we go on in Brooklyn, right? Because Brooklyn's probably going to be the biggest, best market in the nation, because everybody on the corner smokes something. That I got friends that literally would leave my porch and get arrested, right? Or you talk about, like, when I worked in Brownsville, like the sweeps that were done just for folks because they smelled something. And what did that do? Brownsville in itself, 29 public housing developments. You get a record, you can't go back home. Yeah. You can't live no more, right? You can't get a job. And so when you really start to look at just not even Brooklyn, but the Bronx and areas where our people live, like something that is part of a peace pipe, right? Something that heals, something that gives you peace, now like creates arginine for folks. And it's weird how, like, we look at when things move right to left, right? This thing was so illegal, it was so bad. Now all of a sudden you can make money on it, so now it's so good. But the folks, again, who are affected by it sit in the backside. So that's why I'm proud to be a Black man in this space. I'm also proud that, like, my boss has said, yo, I need you to bend that curve. I need you to make sure people's lives are intact, and go do it. Like, you got a problem? Call me, and I'm like,
that's dope.
That's dope. I was gonna say, shout out to the company just for one, having that type of interest in doing that type of work. Having a CEO that is a visionary, that says, hey, we don't just want to be the best cannabis company doing it. We want to be the best company, period, doing it. I think that sets intentionality, which, Roz and I talk about all the time with the companies who are struggling in this space. The intentionality only goes so far. You know what I mean? It doesn't go all the way through in terms of, we want this to be a part of our fabric, the fabric of who we are as a company and how we do business. I think for some companies right now, it's in that, space where it's like, okay, we feel like we know we got to do the right thing, so let's do something, but the intentionality doesn't go beyond that. Can you talk a little bit, in Roz, I don't know if you were going to go in a different direction,
actually, I was going to say, leading into your question, whatever Eric asked you, also tell us about Air Wellness, because a lot of people don't know about your company. But Eric, go ahead and ask your question.
And that's kind of where I was going to be going with it, in terms of like you transitioning, you just finished up this election, you get this random call about getting into this industry you had no interest in. And now you're, finding yourself considering this. You're at this company now. Talk about, the company itself and the culture, because I heard you say something, about coming from the CEO, and that to me speaks to a culture. So talk about the culture that existed, before you got there, and so on. And what was that like?
So the irony of it, folks said, are you going to be comfortable in this space? And, to my previous point, like I was the first Black VP in the history of a hospital that's in the Black community, right? And so when I sat down and met all of the members of AIR, right, it was one woman who's our COO, dope, and shout out to Women on Women's History Month, and then men, right, white men, and then me, right? And I'm like, I'm used to being the chocolate chip in the room, but this was crazy. And knowing, but knowing that the desire to want more, to want better for everybody, despite color, race, anything, economic status, was at the forefront of John's thought process, and knowing that they changed the mantra of this company to a force for good. Like he wants to be a force for good. And what does that mean in social responsibility? He said, look, brother, I'm giving you a canvas, and I need you to paint and show me, explain to me as an artist what you see and how something I don't see, right? And I tell my wife all the time, like, dead artists, you got to anticipate or interpret what they're saying. But if you alive and then you ask an artist, what does that mean? Then they could explain it to you. And so when he said that, I was like, I never even had a conversation with anyone like that, let alone like this white billionaire telling me, I want you to paint and I want you to do what you know best and then teach me that stuff. I was like, say less, right? That's the new thing, say less, and we in it. And so, the history of AIR, I'm pretty new to it again because I'm not a cannabis guy, but John Sendelman is the CEO, started his business in 2017. I think his first business was in Nevada and Massachusetts, and now we're in 8 states. Building a threshold, hopefully to get into 10, 15 states. But when I tell you that the culture that he's trying to create is about inclusion, diversity, understanding business, right? Because Black and brown people buy this too, right? So if you alienate them as consumers, then you alienating your business. You can't be successful. And then, Rosin, about New York State. New York State is trying to make sure that we are fully equitable, that we're making sure Black and brown people get that conversation, automatically expunged records of folks who had nonviolent cannabis crimes. And he sees that. So I want you to do that in Arizona for me, Kay. I want you to do that in Pennsylvania. I want you to do that in Florida. Like, Roz, you and Eric, we got some work to do in Florida, right? Based on our conversations.
Hey, we're ready.
And so
are they in Florida now, or are they trying to come into Florida?
No, so we have 42 or 44 operations in state. They all medical, from Tallahassee all the way down. I don't see that. I think it's Liberty Health Science. I think it's Liberty.
So is Liberty a part of AIR? So
makes sense.
Do you know the background and history? Because so for everybody that's listening,
we just had that conversation the other day about
we
Liberty,
just did.
And
so we're in Florida. So Eric and I are in Florida. So we've been like advocating. That's where our advocacy started in Florida. Mm-hmm. Florida is just is an interesting thing. But Liberty is so funny because Liberty, when they first got their license, and this is in 2018, maybe 2017, they were one of the first companies that we actually sponsored an event that we did out in Oakland. And they came up and they was like, what do you need? And then we went back to report back and to go share and to talk about doing more. And they just disappeared.
Some new team. Yeah.
So Liberty and Air. So are they Air Wellness now here, or is Liberty down here?
So that the operations side, I must say, I got to get a little better on, and then they sent me notes, but I obviously didn't read it. But part of the reality is Liberty, I know, in Florida, Oasis in Arizona, Sierra Natural in Massachusetts, Dispensary 33 in Chicago. So, basically understanding, going in and supporting those businesses, they're taking them over and then doing what these guys do best. So the fun part about it is, and I'll jump a little around a little bit, but something that you said to me on our first Zoom together that resonated so much of that. And when I was in Florida, I told my boss, I was like, look, we're going to do this. We're going to link up with Roz and we're going to do this, was about just the access of medical marijuana cards for Black and brown people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, she's doing this work. Me and her have to have a couple conversations, but we want to go all in with you all on this. We want to make sure that we turn around and make sure everybody gets those cards, and even expand that into Pennsylvania, where they're also having that issue too for white folks, which is crazy, right? But we're trying to create that dynamic. And one of the things that I've learned through my life is like, look, I wasn't born alone, right? The doctor had to pull me out of my mom, smack me around, the nurses had to take care of me. And so the reality for me is nothing we do can be done in a silo. And that's why partnerships with you, that's why partnerships with the Library of New Jersey, Freedom Grow, I'm making sure that we build a full community of support to roll this thing out, because I hang out in Florida, right? I go down for Miami Carnival. That's as close you get me in Florida. Right. You guys are doing the work.
Give me a call the next time you coming down.
No, for sure. October, I'm gonna book my stuff. But that's what I'm saying. I don't know Florida. You know Florida, right? You guys know Florida, and that's in order to be successful in this and doing right by people, you got to partner with those who do the work. And so that's the fun part.
And we got some lawmakers who love to introduce you to as well. Some legislators, some Black lawmakers who really, they are, we currently right now are going in Florida. There's a Black Pickford license application that's going through the process. But in regards to Black folks, minority folks being involved in the industry from an ownership perspective, it's not there yet. So, but anyways, you had a comment or a question.
Yeah. I was going to ask him in regards to, working with, where was I going with that question? Internally, what type of, and I'm asking this question because, again, you got to realize our goal is to get other companies to be, moving in the direction that you guys are moving in, and understand, what does that support look like for you and your role internally? Like, had they wrapped their arms around you? Had they, given you, clear, directives? They have given you a budget.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and again, I hope I don't want to cause, internal issues or nothing, but it's speak toward that.
No, and it's a real conversation, right? And that's why I'm here. I'll be very clear. Like, the CEO said, I report to him, right? And because if I find a roadblock, he's the one that removes the roadblocks. And, just like now I'm y'all cousins, it don't matter if you white, green, yellow, I'm everybody's cousins, because, I'm non-threatening. I come in the room, I talk to people, I embrace folks, I understand their traumas, I ask them to understand mine, and we work together. And the beautiful thing about Air that I can say is that everybody really wants to work in sync, right? Everything that John has spoke about, that this plant is about wonder, that you basically somebody's boss, you employing them, but you taking care of their family. Folks fall in line in that. And I haven't had any resistance whatsoever. It wasn't like, oh, here's the Black guy that knows the boss and everything's coming through. Everybody has just been on the same page. And so when we do these big programs or we do these initiatives, it's amazing to have everybody from Florida to Arizona reach out and be like, yo, dope, how could we do something more? So there's a reality that I think folks internally want to do better. It's just that maybe they didn't have somebody like me, or they were trying to figure out the best motive to make that happen. And I don't know about the other companies, can't speak about them, but I do know in our company that everybody's really on the same page about now being this force for good. Like Brother Scott, who He's in Florida. He hit me up and he's like, okay, I need T-shirts, right? For our beach cleanup. And I'm like, say less. Let me see what the budget is. Like, I'll get you the T-shirts, because when you guys are out there having the employees work on an environmental issue, now it's just to bring that synergy. And so family is important to me. Community is important. And what I think we are building that areas of community. Don't get me wrong. Like, we speaking open that it ain't easy. I've had to drive to Massachusetts and ruffle some feathers. I had, we had to let folks know that it's a new way. The CEO says it's a new way. Diversity and inclusion is not a natural form. For us, when you look at our metrics of hiring people of color, we're doing better, right? But I'm the only Black guy in the C-suite for now. But in a couple months, there's going to be more of us, and that's the beauty of like
progress.
And it's the beauty of having somebody who's aware of that or willing to listen. Like, I'll tell you, I wake up 6 o'clock in the morning. I was watching PBS, Slavery by Another Name, right? And I'm like, oh shoot! And I sent it over to John, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna watch this, right? So a lot of folks don't have that ability to just say, yo, this is why my people suffer. This is why we got cars. Why Black people like cars versus owning homes. And I could send it to him, and he's like, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
How can we help?
Can when we talk about corporate social responsibility, and I know that I focus on, I'm not going to say we, but the one area that I focus on is the DEI part, the diversity part. But there's some other really important pieces to corporate social responsibility that I think we should be looking at. And you tapped on a little bit when you talked about, beach cleanup, our community. Is there anything else out there that you're thinking about outside of just the of course, being able to increase diversity, look at ways of providing more inclusion? Are there any other social causes that you are connected to or you're interested in pursuing?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, corporate social responsibility means opening doors, right? Like, you're going to make $1 billion in somebody's community. I'll take a step back. When I was at the hospital, one of the vice presidents said, hospitals are the worst neighbors. And I'm like, why? He says, because you have ambulances coming all hours of the night. People still got to get up and work. And so it's our responsibility to do our best to make sure that the community is not only comfortable with us, but that we are partners in the community. And so that's what we're doing. That's the goal. So that's why I said in Pennsylvania, the demographic is not as minority as it would be in Florida.
Yeah.
So what do we do in Pennsylvania? So autism is a huge thing, right? And now we're starting to move and treat autistic patients with cannabis and try to. So that's what we're going to do in Pennsylvania in one of our regions, because it's huge for that family over there, right? Yes. And then in another part of Pennsylvania, I found out food insecurity is bad, and so airport a fridge, and we have our employees making sandwiches to now put in that fridge so the community has. So I said, look, let's take a step better. Let's take a small business that's been suffering through COVID, use our money, buy the sandwiches from them, support them, because now what are you doing? You're supporting the community. Yeah. And these are and like I said, Eric and Roz, it's not stuff that is rocket science. Like this stuff,
not rocket science.
But it's part of the norm. And the big thing, and I love to shout John out about this, because we argue about public education versus charter schools, right?
Right.
And we argue, like, in a good way, in a great way. So he said, look, why is our education system doing bad for kids? I said, because in some cases we don't have the resources. So you know what AIR's doing? We're creating a program where we're going to support rising seniors, right? Help them identify colleges, help them go through the application process, pay for the application process. Once they get in, help them navigate, do the essay. Then once they get in, navigate the financial aid. And we're going to take 10 students from each state that we're in our first cohort, and we're going to build that family. Because even if they don't want to go into cannabis, right? Some people might be the first people from their family to go to college. Sure. Why aren't we helping them? We're bending the curve. And so when I tell you that no idea is above us, below, like if you give us an idea that's going to help people, we're going to do it. You know, and we're going to be economically responsible, right? So here comes the budget answer. We're going to be economically responsible because,
but it takes resources to
yeah,
get this stuff done.
Yeah.
And I think I would love to hear from your perspective the fine line of doing good works but not being gratuitous, like where you might have companies that want to do the good work, but they want to take credit for it and make sure everybody sees it, because it's not, and I don't think it's not coming from a good place, but it's that balance, where you're wanting to show the ROI. And sometimes ROI is hard to show with CSR. You just do the work and let it speak for itself. And sometimes the whole entire cannabis community may not know that AIR is making sandwiches for the community or paying someone to feed the community. How do you kind of square all that up in your mind? And what's that conversation look like if you're talking to a John and he's wanting to understand, is there a ROI for CSR?
That was my question right there for you, Roz. Like, how do you have that conversation in the boardroom? Because I think there's other folks who are in similar roles like you in other organizations that, I can't imagine, they wish they had a John, I'm sure. But for some people that may be difficult.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a very fine line. And because during my interview process, Paul, who is one of our first deputies to Jason, who's another CEO of operations, right? He said, look, doing the Black Lives Matter stuff, we did a lot of stuff, but we did it quietly. And I looked at him and said, why? And he was like, well, we didn't want to look like, a corporation that's just doing it. And I was just like, well, too bad for you. That's not on me, right? We are now, unfortunately, a society of see me, hear me, understand what I'm doing, right? I'm wearing this t-shirt because it's dope, but I got AIR on the side of the t-shirt for a reason. So that fine line is something that I got to fight with every day. Yeah. And so what I try to do is let the actual work be the optics, right? When you actually do that, I could say this to you and your listeners hear it, and now all of a sudden everybody's going to talk about how great AIR is, but I want to do the work. Yeah. And so what I've seen in this industry sometimes is like we put on these shows and there's nothing substantial. When you come to look at my books, right, I have a foundation. I have a concrete foundation that to say we did X, Y, and Z. And if you want to cover it, you can cover it. But I'm going to tell you we did it. And that's the way we let the actions speak louder than words. But, I make no bones about it. Like there's certain things that for real, like I'm trying to get folks to know we're doing it. I'm trying to embarrass folks into doing the right thing.
Right.
And my team will tell you I laugh so much because I'm an Instagram junkie. I love Instagram, right? And so when we started our AIR Social Impact Instagram, I'm crying every day. Why we only got one follower? Why we only got 2 followers? And everybody, Cameron who works on the team says, chill. We're on a trajectory. And I'm like, nah, I need more. And even when I first met Roz, I'm like, follow me on Instagram. But we're in that society now where folks need to understand that the work is being done. And then if they want to take a deeper look, they'll see that we actually are doing the work. So it's a really fine line. It's difficult, but there are a lot of stuff that I'm sorry.
How do you communicate the actual impact, or it sounds like you guys are doing some level of tracking and measuring of the work that you're doing, right? And, going back to Roz's statement earlier, that doesn't, in the boardroom, that doesn't always translate so well when you're looking at, bottom lines and numbers. So how do you, in your role, and again, I know you're still new, so perhaps this isn't a how do you currently communicate the ROI on the work that you're doing. It may be more so how do you plan to communicate that, to your CEO?
Yeah. Well, so I've been blessed in that respect, right? Because most of these guys that own these big companies are like investment bankers, business plans. They got to see all of this stuff, right? I'm not that dude. Right? I'm not a desk dude. I'm an action dude. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle, right? Because John needs to see ROIs, SWOT, everything in the middle. But then there are the realities of what we do. So, case in point, we did something amazing, and shout out to Jeff Finnerty of our marketing team. But we did something amazing called the 12 Days of Giving, where we basically, in each of our regions, built out something for these communities. But interestingly enough, when I got there, people support what is it? The Last Prisoner Project.
Right.
Right? They're a big deal. And so I called the lady over there and I said, hey, look, I know you guys are big and we're going to obviously give you money like every MSO is giving you money, but help me do more for people. And she said to me, no one's ever asked me that question. I'm going to introduce you to the Freedom Grow. And the Freedom Grow is a not-for-profit, a lady who got locked up for a cannabis crime, who basically has a database of over 200 prisoners doing non-cannabis crimes and and supporting their family. Like they do a Make-A-Wish thing. And I said to my team, I said, yo, let's do this. Let's give them money.
Yeah.
And literally, like a week before Christmas, y'all, I'm flying down to Laurinburg, North Carolina, where I ain't never been in my life. Drove through cotton fields to get to this place and went and presented to a young lady whose husband's been locked up for 8 years for less than 3 ounces. She has 7 kids. She works 2 jobs. We basically gave her and each kid money for Christmas. We gave their mom money for Christmas. We took them to Walmart to shop. And yeah, we took photos, but that impact for that family goes way beyond what air or anything else we could publicize. So that's why I said it's a really fine line. So when I go to John and I talk about this, or I show the smile of the young lady, you know, that's the quantifiable piece. That's the return on investment. Because like I said, not talking about any other CEOs. I don't know them. Sure, they're great. But I know my CEO is like, yo, I'm trying to change the world. When I close my eyes, I want to know that I've done something. And if I'm doing it through cannabis, that's even better for me, right? And it does maybe build brand loyalty. It does.
It matters, right? Because we at some point in time, when legalization happens at the federal level, you're not going to open up the whole entire country to be able to do business across state lines. And people don't understand that consumers will then drive the conversation about who they want to buy their product from, who they support, or what have you. And we have long memories of companies that are committed to and are supporting and of the work that has to be done, because it's just, we need you guys. We don't have that ability right now, as nonprofits, to go after grants to be able to support what we're doing. So it's just critical. You tell us a little bit. Your wife and your family and those are around you, what have you. What's your thoughts about?
Hey, Roz. Hey, Roz, real quick before you go there, I want to make sure I underscore a point that he said there as well when we talked about that ROI and having that conversation. What I took away from that, and I hope that other CEOs and other people who are in roles for CSR and so on, that they are able to, hopefully this is somebody you're working with who has the same mentality. But I heard that your CEO has a mentality. For him, he definitely needs to see, numbers in black and white as a CEO. But you showing him a picture of someone with a smile, he immediately got the ROI. That to me speaks to a mindset and a way of viewing an ROI that you can't translate into numbers in black and white on a piece of paper. And so for those of you who are out there trying to figure out, okay, how do we get our company going in the right direction? I think it starts with a mindset first. Has to start with a mindset of recognizing that the ROI isn't going to be something that, always you can quantify in numbers and show in black and white. Sometimes it's going to be an impact that goes beyond what we can put on paper. So thank you for that. But go ahead, Roz.
No, but you know what? But don't answer my first question. Answer this question first, and then we'll go back to the second question. Do you have advice for individuals that might see these positions that are popping up in regards to their interviewing style? Are you asking the tough questions of the company, or are you sitting there and just absorbing what they were looking for and trying to figure out how to fit in? Because I think that's where the thin line is, especially if you've been an advocate before and now you're going on the inside. How much can you push to say, this is what I think you should be doing and get that job versus just sitting there and listening to what they want and just saying, yes, I can do it. But I think there's a balance between the two. Any advice for folks that are looking at these type of opportunities that are going to be presented?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at who you are and what you need at that moment, right? Again, I wasn't looking for this opportunity. And it is an opportunity. This was an amazing opportunity. I was, like I said, in my depression about losing an election, and they said the right thing to me for who I am. And I make no bones about who I am. I don't apologize. I'm wild. I'll curse. I'll do whatever because I'm me. But I got both of my feet on the ground, right? The hard part, I think, in a lot of these other opportunities for folks is that it's, we need to work, right? Like we need a job, and sometimes when you interview for these jobs, you're not coming in with a savings bank, you like, look, I need this job. But what I did learn from losing the election was I went to change the lives of the people that I wanted to do right by. And somebody said to me, if you would have just got in and then changed from the inside out, you could have been that. And so my advice to a lot of the folks who come into this place is to, when you interview, be very clear about your vision and who you are, especially if you're a black or brown person, right? Because you are a commodity in this time and era. They need you, because if it's too white, it's not right, right? And so they need you in that space, but you also have to realize that everything's a negotiation, everything's a compromise, but you don't want to compromise that moral value. I tell folks all the time, I got to be able to come back to my neighborhood. I got to be able to come home.
That part.
And if I sell out to that extent, yeah, I'm gonna have some money in my pocket, but cats do remember that. And so for me, I think that whenever you interview, and I always tell my wife I'm the best interviewer ever, because I just get in and I'm who I am. But I think that when you interview for these jobs, that the reason why they're asking you this because they need you, and don't sell yourself short. And I think they'll respect that, because if not, they're gonna tell you no, thank you. But if you say yes and you don't live up to what they want, then you're doing yourself a disservice,
Yeah. Any advice on when you get in and you are not having a John as a CEO, you're told this on front value in the interview, you get in with the thought that, all right, great, but you have no KPIs, you have no instruction. Mm-hmm. It's almost like you're an afterthought.
No budget.
And no budget. You see your counterparts being invited into meetings that you're not. So you're wondering, why are we having this in my position? And you may have seen this in other industries outside of cannabis. I know I've seen it when I've been in positions where I'm like, so what about me? So any advice in regards to that respect of, just how to manage and facilitate through the not so perfect situation on the inside.
So I actually have a mentor in this game. When we were at MJ BizCon, my wife ran into a young lady who is in my position for another company, right? So I got to keep her name and the company nameless, right?
Sure.
And what she offered me was, once a month we get on the phone and just have like a bitching session, right? A venting session. Let's talk about it. And she always asks me how I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm good. And I'm like, how are you doing? Because she's been in this space a little longer than I have been. And she's going through exactly what you're saying, right? But she believes so much in the mission of what she's trying to do and who she's trying to affect, yes, that these little sessions may be as helpful to her as they are to me. Yes. And so sometimes, like I said, we can't work in a silo. Like, we got to be able to vent, cry, complain, and then get our tail back up and do it all over again. And, one thing I even talk about, just going way back to slavery, right? Because in my introduction to the expungement events that we were talking about, Roz, that we started doing in the other states.
Yes.
My introduction was literally talking about the sharecropper movement and slavery in its natural form. And my uncle said something interesting to me, because I was in healthcare. He's like, do you know why Black and brown people always go to the emergency room? And I was like, nah. He says, because genetically it became part of the only way we would get healthcare, and we'd get a day off from work. Mm-hmm. So we don't have the ability to go see a doctor because it's not built in our genetics.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing, right? If we don't, somebody said, men who don't cry go to jail, right? Because if you building up that angst and have nobody to talk, can't talk to Eric or Roz, or just even talk to your family and just get it all out, you harming yourself. And so I'm not in business of harming myself. I'm like, yo, I'm a crier. I complain to my wife, talk to my kids. It's I'll, like now that we cousins, I'm probably gonna call y'all and be like, yo, this is
Yo,
hard day.
listen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Listen, I might call you and be like, yo, listen.
We have
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and we have extended that to a number of people who are in similar roles in different organizations. Like, hey, listen, we want to see you get a win. We want to work with you as a nonprofit, but on another note, brother to brother, man, if you ever need to just pick up that call, pick up that phone.
Yeah.
We're here because we do want you. I think sometimes as advocates, we're so passionate about wanting people to do the right thing. We want to hold the government, their feet to the fire. We want to hold the company's feet to the fire. And I think sometimes it can be translated or come off as if, we don't want people to, we want to blast you when you do the wrong things and, be skeptical when you do the right things. And I think at the end of the day, we want to see you, we want to see companies like Air and others. We want to see you guys do well with this. Like we really want to see this work because we believe it impacts your company and your bottom line, and impacts the people that works in your company, and impact the community as a whole. So I think we want to see this work, and we want to be a support for you guys. We want to be a partner with you guys in doing this work.
Yeah,
I'm tell you a quick story, right, about my first time that I met Raj, right? So we were in MJ BizCon, and my wife ran into Roz, and he's like, "Tell me how dope this lady is." And I didn't even take the job yet. And then I go to New Orleans, and Roz is on a panel, right? And I asked the young lady, I'm like, can I meet her? Because I got to talk to her. And she's like, "Yeah, dope." So I said, "Hello, Miss Roz. My name's Kari Edwards. I'm with Air now." She looked at me. She said, "Well, Air need to be doing a little more." And I sat there and I was like, "Oh snap. I just got in this spot," right? And I tell her the story every time. I'm like,
welcome.
Right. And I'm like, damn.
I'm sorry.
And I was like, the pressure, it felt like, I was like, if somebody could have put me in a box and fold me. So I'm like, no, but you're an advocate. You're a voice, and I'm hearing it from you.
And I don't mean more with M for MM. I mean more in general.
Yeah,
right?
You were very clear with it. But
Right.
for me, I was now getting into this space. I'm like, so I had to go into my book, and I was like, okay, let me start doing my plans, because the next time I see this lady, I bet to say Air did something. And so, but I understand that, because I needed that push too. I needed to understand the level.
And the one thing, and Kari, the one thing about you is that you're very clear on where you want to go, and you move fast with intention, right? And I like that. I like when you see something, and if it really, you're able to, what I've seen thus far is, one, being able to square up what needs to be supported or what needs to be connected to your organization, because again, we have to show that ROI, but then being able to find those organizations and people that are doing good work and impacting communities, and being able to say, show me what you need, show me what you're working with, let me figure out how to, and you're being able to kind of mix and match and just really, be able to kind of help them go through the process. I think working with nonprofits and people that are trying to do good work, sometimes it could be like this sometimes, and it shouldn't be. But we have our pain points over here as a nonprofit, and then the MSOs were like, okay, I hear you, but I got my pain point over here. And I just think we just need to listen to each other more. And hopefully I didn't come across too much of it wasn't like you with M for MM. It was just about the organization and and I think the business, the corporation that has the capacity to do more. And you will see that if you do more, it will pay off in spades, in my opinion.
And you know what, Roz, really quick too, I think sometimes people might catch us on bad days. Like, remember,
that part too,
human, right?
Or
like
somebody done said something and I had to go off, and I was like, and you caught me when I just had to go off on something else, and I'm like, my bad, dog.
No, but
I'm saying that to say that, we as M4MM, we're one of the more visible groups out there, right? And so we get a lot of people who recognize the work we're doing, who want to work with us, but it comes off, sometimes where, and I think Rod said it best, if you approach it from a standpoint of, let me listen, let me see what you're working on, what your pain points are, what your needs are, and how those might align with what we're working on, what our pain points are, what our needs are. I think you can get to a place where you find that synergy, right?
Some nice
But I
harmony.
think,
Yeah.
but
And
I think
Roz made a
sometimes-
great point to me too one day, right? We again on first Zoom, I was just like, look, Roz, I'm able to do event by event. And she's like, nah. And I was like, nah. She's like, look, I'm a not-for-profit. I gotta feed my workers. I gotta do stuff. She's like, I need you to be a partner. Right. And a lot of folks aren't really honest with those conversations. And I could, like I said, now we cousins, I could honestly respect that. Right. And so I said, dope. Let's build something together, because there are other folks in this game who, like, it's a quick penny. They see these companies making a lot of money. They trying to get your money.
Yeah.
And it's tough for me because, you want to take care of everybody. You want to put money in everybody's pocket. You want to do right by everybody. But when you talk about the ROI, my boss is like, yo, I can't give everybody money. I got to, if we're going to give money, we got to make sure that this is long lasting relationships or long lasting events. And you changed my perspective so much on it, Roz, when you was just like, look, I'm a not-for-profit. If you don't come in as a partner, then I don't need you. I need somebody who's going to be with me, because this is how I feed my team. And I'm like, say less, we got it. And that was the beautiful part of meeting you guys and having those real conversations.
Well, one thing that we're doing together, and I'm going to put this on screen for everybody, and I'm just thankful. This is just a one-off, but Kari see the value. And let me tell you something, and I kid you not, it's going to be so impactful, because every time we've done our boot camps, we have nothing but everyone that participates, they've either done one of three things. They either apply for a license on their own and they're able to get a license, or they went through the process. 2, they either find a partner during the boot camp that they're able to work together, and now they're not out there alone, so they're able to go together and apply for a license or figure it out. Or 3, they decide that, no, you know what, I don't want to be an operator. I really want to tap into my ancillary business and make that the goal for my entry into the industry. And it's a beautiful thing. So I want to show everybody. Let me see if I can get this. Woo. So again, everybody, we are going to be in Connecticut. And I'm just putting this on screen right quick, and I'll show it towards the end. But Air Wellness is going to be the sponsor. They are the sponsor for our Connecticut Cannabis Business Bootcamp. I need you guys right now, if you know anyone in Connecticut, we do have a cost, but we do have scholarships. Our Air is going to be supporting scholarships, but we have a cost, because I don't want folks coming and thinking like this is time to just kind of kick.
You got to put some skin in the game.
No, we need you to put some skin in the game, because you need to be there it's all day on March 26th and a half a day on March 27th. I guarantee, if you're going after a social equity license in Connecticut, this particular event will change your life and help you to really go after your dreams. So I want to put that up and just be able to say to Kari, and Kari doesn't even have a location in Connecticut. So I appreciate that, but there's crossovers, because you have folks in New York who have people in Connecticut, or they know folks or what have you. So we're going to be pushing this out. But I just want you to know, for me, how much I appreciate you just really just standing by your word and be like, all right, Roz, my kid is calling me. All right, Roz, let me see what you got going on. What are some of your priorities? Let's figure it out. And I mean, you just can't. It was just so quick and intentional, and I love it, and I appreciate you, man.
Oh, listen, it's like, well, we're family now, right? So you can't say no to family, but
you can't say no to family.
But it's also that personal touch that you did. Like, you didn't email me, you called me. He was like, yo, well, could we do this? And I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, so, and again, I have that ability. What I will say about my budget is I promised my CEO I'm not gonna go crazy. Right. I was on a call with one of his investors, and they asked me, well, what's your budget? And I said, I mean, I don't really have a budget, but what I do know is that I'm not going to spend this man's money without really creating a dynamic relationship for him. Yeah. And so we have that understanding, right? I'm not going to ask him for $1 million, because it don't make sense. I come from government and social service. I know how to make things dance with under 100,000.
Get some things done.
Yeah, and so, but the role that we're doing, what he's put forth in the desire to change people's lives, that cost can be done the way we've always done it, right? We've always just put these pennies together, like you were telling me about your event in MJ BizCon, right? You put that together with nothing and had one of the most successful events. And so why can't I do that for this thing, so that when we do need to invest in bigger portions, that there's money at the end of that role. So yeah, I don't play that money thing, man. I I got to keep that real.
So talk about let's talk about this merch thing. Like, knowledge is power. Who your merchandise? You got your T-shirt on. I mean, it's a long sleeve. You got Air Wellness on there. Tell us about merch. How do people get engaged with Air Wellness? Your website, things of that nature. Let's make sure folks know where you guys are. Name off those states that you're in right now and who's your brand under those states, because we want people to know, like, this is a real deal. Working with Kari Edwards and working with his team in state by state. Listen, let me tell you something about this brother. He has about 4 different expungement clinics set up, and he was like, "Well, Ross, can y'all do this?" And then it was like for the next 2 weeks. I'm like, "Oh, Kari, I can't poop out no expungement clinic. Like, I got a program director. She got it planned out." Yeah. So when I tell you he's putting energy and he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's committed to this. I just knew off the rip that we were going to be the best of friends and work together. And I know I may make an ask and he may not be able to entertain that ask. And I'm okay with that, because everything is not going to always go towards what Roz wants or what I need or whatever. If that was the case, I wouldn't have to make an ask. But the fact is that we have communication, that we talk to one another, that you value the organization, you value the resources that we provide. And you're asking, Roz, what are you guys working on? What are you focused on? How can we help you? It means the world to me. And I want to tell you from the bottom of my heart that I really, really appreciate it. So tell people how they can find Air Wellness and all of the other different states that you guys are in. And let's make sure they get connected.
Yeah, so the website is airwellness.com. We're still a work in motion, and that's really about the products, the brands that we're dealing with. I am not, like I said, fully versed in everything, but I know that, you know, we have State College in Pennsylvania, Sierra Naturals in Massachusetts, Dispensary 33 in Arizona, Oasis in Dispensary 33 in Chicago, Oasis in Arizona, the Henderson spot in Nevada, and like I said, a whole bunch in Florida.
Yes. Liberty, under Liberty, right? Liberty.
Yep, under Liberty. Yep. Yeah. And so the fun part, like for me, is like, you know, again, Instagram is Air Social Impact, right? That's the CSR piece. Air Wellness is the Instagram page for all the cannabis touching stuff. And, you know, like I said, we're excited about it. And so to talk about the T-shirt, right, and why I'm proud of this one, to Roz's point, I had this big idea because, you know, John says, I need you to go big. I need you to think outside yourself. So I woke up one morning and I'm like, look, I'm going to do a 5 to 8 state expungement event all on the same day. And I was just like, we're going to make this happen.
Go big and go home, right?
Go right. And so I'm like, I got the partners. I got the thought process. Let me get this done. And so in Massachusetts, we partnered with Mass Cultivate Ed, that's been doing this work in terms of expunging our brothers and sisters, helping them get, you know, fellowships with some of these MSOs as jobs. And so that one worked out with DeJuan Packnett from our team. We had that date, right? So the 27th, boom. And then reached out in Chicago and got hooked up through the Cabrini Legal Aid Society. Right. And so we called them up and we said, look, how do we get this done? And they were like, right now, we got a pipeline of over thousands of people who've been trying to get this done. But the way that the system creates a barrier for our folks is that you got to go through the same process. You got to get arrested to get your rap sheets. Then you got to take drug tests. So they said, look, we got 180 people we could do on the spot. Would you help us out? So did that, right? And then we were supposed to do something in Arizona. That's why I try to recruit Roz into that real quick. But she's like,
well, nah, we got something coming up in Arizona.
We got to talk about that too.
So we'll talk offline.
I got the approval for that one.
Jaja Simone, she's our state director in Arizona. She ready for you. So we'll make that happen.
So we coming out. So Arizona had to be put on pause. In New Jersey, the Library of New Jersey, 2 brothers who have been about the social equity, been pushing, hoping that they get their things going, that we're partnering with them. But these 2 young men put a dope event together in Jersey for us. And then, you know, hometown New York, right? So hometown New York, Well, let me back up. We actually partnered with Roz on the low because our Nevada location did a fundraising effort for Clean Slate.
You did, yes.
And so we
That's right.
pushed energy through there.
You sure
And
did.
then we did actually something in Connecticut as well. We partnered up with a local lawyer who did 20 folks who've been waiting to just get their life together on that step. And then, like I said, I got to come home, right? Brooklyn, Cammie McNeil from my team and we partnered with Community Alternatives and the Stash Queens of New York and the God Squad of New York. And what we basically did is we ran something in New York, because even though New York has automatically expunged records, there's secondary records that prevent folks from getting their stuff. And what we realized in this process is that they make you go through hoops, right? They lock you up really easy, but they make you go through hoops to get your freedom. And so the T-shirt came from Community Alternatives to say knowledge is freedom, and right. And then hold on, so if y'all can see, I'm gonna turn around. If y'all can see the back of my shirt,
and perpetual punishments. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So that's part of what we did there, and it just became this thing. And to your point, Eric, about the ROI, right? When I went in and spoke to John and we talked about this thing, he's like, how many people did we take care of, right? So we had 400, we had 1,000 RSVPs, 400 people showed up, we got 160 on the spot, we're working to get other folks. He's like, that's not enough. He's like, I want to make sure that no one has to deal with this problem. And I was like, brother, you ain't got enough money for that, right?
And I would like to say, for expungement, it is not as easy as it sounds. And so we actually, and with M4MM, we have our Project Clean Slate, which is not only about expungement, but it's about the holistic person in the wraparound services. So being able to, once they walk out that door, you have no idea. Like we did one in Arizona, in Nevada, in Las Vegas. The gentleman had just been kicked out by his girlfriend and was homeless. And so we had wraparound services, resources for them right on the spot, followed up to make sure that they were good. I think we don't realize it's not easy. And it's not easy for people to come out the shadow who have this mark on their record to even allow you to go through and ask them questions, because you have someone sitting there asking you, so when were you arrested? What's your social? They're going into your private space. And that sometimes, especially from communities of color, can be we have a hard time trusting. It can be very intimidating. And you just feel like, I don't even think you could do what you say you can do. Right. And so, I would say to John and to
or they can't even find their information, because that record keeping is tough,
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing about it is that you have, even with automatic expungement, don't believe the hype that someone's automatically expunged, because I've seen so many times we've had individuals have come and it's still sitting on their record. Yeah. So what do you do about that? So, I just think it's dope, your energy and just where you want to go with this. And I agree with you with John. There's not enough money on the books, but we can do incremental change and make incremental impact. And I'm so excited about the partnership with you, Kari. I think you gave a great, just a really bird's eye view about this position and what it means to you, and also encouraging other folks to understand how important it is. And when you're out there and if you're going after this opportunity, you see Kari here. If you need to find him, call me. I'll get you connected with him, because he will talk to you. Like sometimes we need to talk to one another to prep or to be prepared for that interview.
Hey, Kari, we might need to have a conversation with John. We might not be able to make sure nobody has to deal with that issue, but I think through some of the policy work that we do, it really starts with reforming the expungement laws that are on the books. And perhaps that's a worthwhile, project for us to work on together, so that when we do go in to do these expungements, if it is automatic, we've removed those, unnecessary barriers for people. And obviously, depending on the state that you're in, it depends on, it can get more difficult. If you're in a conservative state, going through expungement can be, a nightmare. And so I think that's something to consider as well, to where as people or states are making it, making expungement a part of legalization for cannabis, we're also looking at how those laws are actually on the books and get implemented as well.
Yeah, and my caption to that one, right? And I told him, I said, look, you're a businessman, right? The reality of it is, I was taught in college about the fundamentalist theory. These states know whether or not this is their income. You know, it's almost what $45 for somebody in Chicago to get
inmate.
this,
Yeah.
right? And so no, just to get your records to go through the process.
Oh yeah.
And if they know they got 2 million people like they got in New York State on the books, or they're gonna eat. And so that's where I sometimes like, look, I like the way we're doing it. Yeah, I think we need to push those conversations forward. But states ain't gonna get that money up, brother. They're not gonna get that money up. They want that money. They're gonna make you jump through hoops to get that money. But what we can do, and to John's point, if I could pay for folks, if I could start creating funds, because what he wanted to do, when I told him we ain't got enough money for that, he's like, let's start getting these other corporations in. Let's call these other MSOs. Let's start creating these funds, and we start building this thing out. Like thinking like the banker in the thought process is, because you want to know something? New York State, 2 million times 14 is a lot of money.
A lot of money. That's a lot.
Ain't no pennies right there.
Yeah, you know, and so in that respect, but we here for the fight, right? So you count us in on you know, we jumping in on your expungement in Arizona. So Jaja, we here, we there. We're gonna take care of that. Because I got the clean bill of that. Can I just give a shout out to my family though? Because you did ask that earlier.
Please.
So,
yeah.
So I gotta give a shout out to my mother-in-law, Lori Mucci, who's been on. I see her pop up on the thing. She is actually the inspiration to obviously my wife. But the only reason I got introduced into cannabis is because I'm a type 1 diabetic, right? And so when I met my wife, it was my girlfriend, you know, she smokes, right? And she was just like, you need to try this. I was like, no, I ain't trying it. I'm West Indian. I ain't doing this nonsense. And she's like, try it. And so I tried it occasionally whenever we hung out. I go to my eye doctor, and the eye doctor's like, yo, you don't have the diabetic retinopathy in your eye anymore. What's going on? And I was like, nothing. He's like, now you had to be doing something. So I leaned over and I was like, I'm smoking weed. And he's like, what? I was like, I'm smoking weed. He's like, yo, keep doing it. Because, you know, even though I'm wearing glasses now, because I'm almost 50, right? It cleared up my stuff. And so I've learned so much from my mother-in-law and my wife in this space. My wife jokes and says I have her dream job and she has mine because she's in politics still. But and then shout out my 3 wonderful kids. My daughter, who is the kind of church one in the group, says, "Oh, Daddy, are you promoting weed to kids?" And I'm like, no. No, but that's the fun part. So I got to shout my family out because they've really been.
They hold you down.
That's awesome, man.
They hold you down. Hey, listen, we're so happy to have you on here, Kari. Just excited for you. I'm excited for this opportunity. You are the face of this industry. You're going to change it. You're going to do such great things with Air Wellness and knowing.
Well, we are not me.
We are together, but we are just excited for you to be a part of this family, of this work that we're doing. You know, just love you to death. Your mother-in-law loves you. She got hearts going out to you. But we're so grateful to have you on with us. Know that you got friends with Eric and I, and whatever we can do to support you as much as you're supporting us, we believe it is a win-win reciprocal type of relationship. We want to make sure that happens. So you guys, this has been Canna Talk with Roz, man. Every Friday, something new, something hot, something intentional that feels good. Because when we're together, it just feels good. And I'm just so happy. And man, Eric, you know what? Wrap us up, man. Take us on home.
Yeah, man. And, you know, again, just thank you, Kari.
I know we love Kari. Is Cammy on your team, Kari?
Yeah. Cammy is the foundational. Whenever I think of something, Cammy want to make it happen, right? And
get it, Cammy.
I'm blessed to have her. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, she can give you
shout out to the whole
all show long. We love it. We love it. We love it. E, take us home, brother.
Air Wellness team, man. You know, thank you guys for the work that y'all doing. You know, thank y'all for supporting this brother Kari and leading the charge for y'all organization, man. Kari, man, it's been a blessing just to meet you here on the talk today. I appreciate all the information and insight. I hope that somebody who's sitting in your same role in another organization has taken something from this, has gotten some encouragement. And so thank you. Thank you to all of our listeners, everybody who joined us today, who, you know, take time every week to listen in and learn. We appreciate y'all for coming back and showing up and sticking with us. As always, y'all, you know, it's the weekend. Y'all go home, love on yourself, love on your family, get some rest this weekend, because come Monday morning, we got work to do. And we'll be back here next week on another episode of Canna Talk with Roz. See y'all next week, y'all.